Hello and welcome to Stories from the Set. I just want to apologize for the audio problems ahead of time. Like I said, don't listen to me, listen to Scott. I might be annoying, but Scott has a really good story and I think you'll like it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Stories from the Set. Coming to you not live from the beautiful Gramercy Palace in Koreatown. I'm your host, Jesus, the original Jesus. Stories from the Set is a podcast that focuses on people who work in the entertainment industry. Not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera. Not just above the line, but below the line. My current guest is a Steadycam operator and a director. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Baker.
Hello.
Please introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Scott Baker. Yeah, and like I said, I'm a director and a Steadicam operator.
Scott Baker. So, obviously, if you could explain to people what a Steadicam operator does, because there's going to be people who don't know.
If you ever seen the movie Aliens, there's the one character that's got the huge gun, and she's got held on by like a vest and a big arm, and that's pretty much what a Steadicam is. It's that same setup. The idea is just a way to stabilize the camera. It's a way to attach it to your body so that you and the camera can move through space and you're not bound by like the rails of a dolly or a crane or a jib or something like that. So you have three components, which is the sled, which is what holds the camera, and it's sort of like a teeter-totter that's balanced, and it's heavier on the bottom and lighter on the top, and that's what holds the camera up. And then that's attached to an arm, which has springs, which is like shocks in a car, and that supports the weight so that when you walk, the camera doesn't bounce up and down and shake and jiggle. And then that arm is attached to the vest, which is a way to strap it to your body so that you're all one piece there, and it kind of distributes the weight down to your legs and stuff like that.
So you are all the movement and the actual operator, because there's a difference. You're not like the first AC. You're not
Right.
You're just there to operate the camera and make it move.
Yeah. And so it's I operate the camera. It's completely manual. They have the newer devices like the Ronin and the Movi, which is like computer assisted stabilization, and so that works kind of like the drones, where there's a computer constantly going that like moves little motors and keeps the camera stable and upright and everything like that. But the Steadicam is like an analog manual version, which gives me complete control of everything, and it's a fun thing because I'm working with the director and the cinematographer, and they tell me what they want, but then it's up to me to actually get the shot. So I do like a lot of music videos, and so there's a lot of improvisation that goes along with that, which is like, okay, well, the actor or the singer is just going to perform the song, and then so I just kind of freestyle. I'll move in and out, and I'll go up and down, left and right, do crazy Dutch angles, just whatever kind of like whatever the song feels like to me. I kind of feel like the rhythm and the beat and the mood of the song, and then just kind of move with that. And if it's like if it's a crazy fast-paced song, I might move in and out real fast and do a lot of crazy movements. But if it's like a slower, like a love song or something like that, then I'm gonna do slower push-ins and less extreme movement. And I just kind of listen to the music and see what the action is and kind of feel it. And then the director and the DP will give me feedback on stuff. But I tend to get a lot of freedom to like kind of do the shot however I want to do it, and then if I start working with the same DP and directors again, then they get to know me, and then so we kind of establish a trust, and they know that I know what I'm doing, so they can just kind of give me that general framework, and I go off and do the shot.
So I know before I get into all that, some other questions. Could you just explain to everyone what a Dutch angle is, because that's a term.
Sure.
It's a term that we use.
Oh, yeah. So generally, most all shots, it's your like horizon of the shot is straight up and down, and a Dutch angle is anytime you do kind of like a roll, and so it's like if you tilt your head to the left or right, that's what a Dutch angle is, and so that's that's not a shot that's used real often, or like it's like 90% of the shots you watch are going to be your horizon's going to be level, and it's something that you would do intentionally to give a different mood or to frame the shot differently and stuff like that.
A good use, actually, good use of the Dutch angle was used in the original Batman TV series. If you watch those shows, I don't know how often it was, but quite often when you went to one of the Riddler's lair, or you went to go see the Joker, they always had their lair at a Dutch angle.
Oh,
so if you
okay.
want to see what a good example of a Dutch angle is, let me turn off my phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it, to give you like a visual idea.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's a good like psychological use of something. Like, oh, they're the bad guys, so something is off. So
Right.
we're gonna move the camera off, or we're gonna use different colors and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah. So how fast can you move carrying a steady
yeah.
camera? Can you run? Can you...
Yeah, I can run. It all like part of it depends on the camera setup, how heavy of a camera setup it is.
What's a typical camera setup weigh?
I would say around 25 pounds ish, 25 30 pounds. Now the red cameras are so light, and that's what a lot of productions are using, and now they have
What do you
like
think of the ARRI is?
yeah, I love Alexas, and I love like Alexa Mini. I just feel like the Alexa Mini is almost a misnomer because it's a lot like the Red, where you've got the brain, which is just the main computer of the camera, but then you start adding on all these other accessories, and so by the time you've added everything on, it's just about as big and as wieldy as the Alexa proper, but you just, instead of it being just one thing, you've got it's like the Red, where you've got, okay, I've got this thing hooked on for the battery, and then I've got this for the monitor, and I've got this for the this and that, and it's just, you end up with more pieces. But it's still like, I love the Alexa cameras. They give a great picture, and they're pretty damn dependable, as far as like on set, like, oh, the camera randomly shut off, or it dropped a clip or something like that. Like, I don't run into a lot of problems on set. What I've had with the Alexa cameras. So, yeah.
So do you have a preference of camera, or?
I mean, obviously, a camera's a tool. Just like for anything else, it depends on what the job is that you're doing. I like the Alexa Mira. It's like the same size as the Alexa Classic, but it's slightly newer. I think they've got a new one coming out, or it's already out. I'm not sure, but I like that camera. Like I said, it's a pretty dependable camera, and it's sort of a everything's there form factor, and does the sensor's great. It's got a really good picture, but the Red cameras are great too. There's the Panasonics and Sonys and Blackmagics and all those other cameras. I mean, there's so many good cameras out there these days. I feel like we're in for like indie filmmakers, specifically, we're in such a great world that, like, when I was growing up and getting into it, we didn't have all of these great cameras that you could get to like get amazing picture that would like rival the studio films. I mean, when I was first starting out, I was shooting on VHS with my buddies.
Well, I don't think I don't think the industry fully went digital until maybe George Lucas, I think, was the one who's like, I'm shooting all my films on digital.
Yeah, episode one. Yeah.
Episode one. So I can't remember what year that came out, even though I've got the Star Wars.
Yeah, that would have been 97, no, 90, 98, 99, something like that. 99
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like the first one, and then there wasn't really like. Never mind. I was thinking of lights. I was thinking of
LED lights.
I don't know
Yeah.
why. I'm like, we just started using LEDs and like do that, but never mind.
Yeah,
It's a totally different story. We're talking about cameras.
Right. But
Core memory.
yeah, there's so many great cameras out there now that indie filmmakers have access to, that you can get a great picture on, and they're everywhere. I mean, especially here in LA with like sites like ShareGrid and stuff like that. You don't have to own a camera. You can get a great a Red Scarlet or even like the Red One, like nobody likes to use that camera, but it's still like, you can still get an amazing picture. I mean, it takes a minute and a half for the camera to turn on, but and then the fan is really, but it still gets an amazing picture for like if you think about it, the dynamic range and it's 4K and everything like that. I mean, you can. I want to say Social Network was shot on the Red One, and I mean Hollywood films were shot on that camera that still look amazing. So.
So I'm an indie filmmaker.
Uh-huh.
I'm out wherever. I'm not in Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
Well, let's say I've come to Los Angeles.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm an indie filmmaker. I don't have to buy these cameras, right? There's rental houses.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
These cameras to you. So, what camera would you suggest that's easy to use for like a first-time filmmaker who wants to just like I've got this project. I've got some little bit of money, and I want to shoot this.
I the only camera that I personally own is the Blackmagic Pocket camera, which it only shoots 1080, doesn't shoot 4K, but it's a super simple camera to use. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles as far as the settings go. You can set the color temperature, and you can set your ISO. And your frame rate, and that's really all that you need to worry about on the camera, and then, okay, do I want to record on QuickTime or do I want to record RAW or whatever? And it's a super simple camera to use. The picture is really good, and it's super cheap, and it's super small. I mean, that to me is like the perfect starter camera. A lot of people use DSLRs or the GH4s and stuff like that.
I don't like the DSL. I don't like. I do use a DSLR, but I personally don't like using it because of the limited time that you have to keep that lens open. I mean, to keep
the shutter.
The shutter open.
Yeah, yeah. It's those cameras are made for shooting stills, and that's like. I mean, it's great as like a budget option, because you can get good picture quality. But for someone who's just starting out, there's a lot of stuff in those cameras, like in the menus, that's just strictly for shooting stills.
Right.
That's just all this clutter in there. And that's why I like the Blackmagic Pocket, because you just go in and there's you can't shoot stills on it even if you wanted to. So all that stuff's not even there. You're just like. Right. So I'm here to shoot video, and that's all that's in the camera. And it's super simple and stripped down. And once you get your settings in there, just hit the red button and go. That would be my recommendation. For like budget, for sure. I mean, like I got my Blackmagic for like $500. And it's like that's such an easy investment. Like as for somebody who just wants something that they can shoot some videos that look good and stuff like that.
And just to give people an idea, Blackmagic compared to like a DSLR, if you're gonna spend $600 on a, I don't know, on the low end of a DSLR, and that's sometimes just a body that doesn't come with the lens.
All right.
But with Blackmagic, that's to me, if you're gonna if you're gonna shoot a project, if you're gonna shoot your film, that's the better deal than going with the DSLR. Spend the money on the Blackmagic.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, because then you're also getting the files you're getting. I think are better. You can get QuickTime Pro Res files, or you can get RAW, and that gives you a lot of latitude in post to kind of mess around with color correction. I mean, you can shoot it in QuickTime, and then you don't have to. Like if you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with the color correction, I just want like a minimal stuff, then you can shoot it in QuickTime, and you don't have to spend all that time in post. Or if you want to shoot it in RAW, you're going to make bigger files, and then you have to spend that time in post to really finesse the image to get to get a look. But you have that latitude if you want to. But then then there's lenses, and you want to.
But you can rent those, right?
Yeah. You can.
You can rent anything.
Yeah. I think.
Not for that much money either.
Right, you can go to ShareGrid. I like that site a lot. It's like it's kind of like Airbnb for camera gear, and so like I've got some of my gear on there, and then I get gear on there all the time, and so you just sign up on an account and you can rent stuff, and that's a good way to sort of like oh, I don't know, like if I want to buy something or I'm thinking about buying something, you can go on that site and you can rent stuff for a couple of days and play around with it and see if you like it or not. Like, oh, I'm going to throw this lens on the camera and see if I like the look of this lens, or and then I'm going to try this lens, and so you can gives you an opportunity to play with it. If you go to a lot of the camera houses and you want to rent stuff, you have to provide proof of insurance, and it's a little more of a complicated thing to be like, oh, I'm just going to go to Burns and Sawyer and rent a set of lenses from them. You have to show that you have like production insurance, and with ShareGrid, the insurance is built into the site. You just pay like an extra 10 or 15 bucks or whatever it is, and you get insurance on your gear when you rent it from them.
So that's definitely a good way for a young filmmaker or a beginning filmmaker. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to be young
Yeah. Oh.
to
Yeah.
get started in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what's your lens? What's your package? The camera with the lenses.
Uh-huh.
What's your package that you use when you're doing your own personal?
Yeah, so I have that Blackmagic Pocket camera, and I have a collection of random vintage lenses that I've picked up off of eBay and stuff like that.
Some of that old glass is like really worth it.
Yeah, I have an old Schneider zoom lens. It's like an 18-90 f2, and so that and it's an old Super 16 mil, because that's the size of the
Blackmagic.
yeah. Blackmagic sensor is a Super 16 mil. So all these old Super 16 millimeter cameras that they used to use back in the day, most people can't use the lenses on anything. So the lenses you can get pretty cheap on eBay. And so I picked one up, and this is a cool old zoom lens that I use on almost everything. And then I've got an old like a Contax Zeiss and some of the newer cheap Rokinon lenses. Those ones are pretty good quality. If I get hired to DP a project, I'll usually rent camera and lenses, just depending on what the project is, what their budget is, what they're trying to do, and stuff like that. I for like lower budget projects, I usually use a Red, because that's usually the cheapest camera to get, like bang for your buck, as far as like I want to get like super high production quality, 4K, good dynamic range, really easy to use on set.
Here's a question I have. Since
Sure.
we're talking about rentals, can you rent a Steadicam rig? I guess.
Yeah, it is. You can, but it's one of these things where if you haven't used it before, you're not very familiar with it, you're not gonna it's not gonna do you a lot of good, because
So you
it
do need
a little training.
training.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be formal training in the sense, but at least
I know Steadicam does have classes.
yeah. You can go to Tiffin, and then there's a couple other companies that do them, and then there's a lot of guys who do like private one-on-one lessons and stuff like that. And it's definitely a thing that, like, when I first started out, I was producing and directing my own short films, and I just wanted Steadicam and my stuff, and I didn't know anybody who was operating, and of course I couldn't afford to hire like a professional op, and so I went and bought like the low end Steadicam Pilot, which is for like the super light cameras, and let's see, this was like about 10 years ago. And I bought that rig, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to use it, and I'm going to incorporate it into the films that we're shooting. And I had no idea that it was like, okay, this is something you got to learn to use. I was like, oh, you just put it on and you just go. And I was like, I put it on and I tried to use it. And my buddy who was a DP, he was trying to use it. It was like, man, this is kind of complicated. So we're like, okay, we went back and got like the videos, and there's some good instructional ones on YouTube. And then there's like a DVD you can get, and then there's a manual. And I started going through all that. And it's like, okay, I gotta like research and figure out how to make this thing work to its like potential, so that you're getting out of it what you want to get out of it, and I spent some time doing that and learning it and figuring it out. And then after about a year of playing around with it, shooting some of my own projects, helping out on my buddy's projects and stuff like that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get the hang of this thing now.
So it took you an entire year to really get the hang of it.
Right. I mean, I guess.
So I don't want to. I'm sorry to stop you. I want. So explain why it takes so long, or why it took you so long doing it on your own. Because it's not just placing the camera on top of the thing and go, right?
Yeah. It's one of these things where like you could take a like one of the Tiffin's kind of crash courses where they take you out for like a week or 2 weeks or however long those courses are, and you've got professionals who've been doing it for 25 years or 30 years, and they're like, okay, we're gonna show you the steps, and they've got their method down, and then by the end of 2 weeks you're like, okay, I got this all down. So, but this was me sort of like trying to figure it out by myself, and looking at the videos and trial and error and stuff like that. And so that was part of the reason. It wasn't like I was spending 8 hours a day on it, but it is it's like, yeah. It's like it's a bit of like kind of learning how to play the guitar in a way. It's like someone can teach you in a week. Okay, this is how you hold the guitar, and these are the notes, and I'm going to show you the song that's these four notes. And you're like, okay, I know how to play a guitar because someone just showed me how to hold my hands. But how long is it going to take you to where you can actually play that song in front of somebody and they're like, oh, that's pretty good, I know that song. Like, it takes you a little while to like get the kind of muscle memory, and just so that it feels natural and you're not like constantly thinking about it, because the idea with the Steadicam is that once it's balanced, the your one hand is making the big movements with the camera, like forward and back and left and right and up and down, and then your other hand is doing the kind of subtle control on the gimbal, which pans the camera left and right and tilts it up and down and does the Dutch angle. And so it's all about that kind of finesse of like doing that, and then every shot you do is different. You're going to have shots where, oh, I'm doing a walk and talk, which is just like two people walking down the sidewalk, or like if you watch ER or West Wing, any of those shows where people are walking down hallways, like those are Steadicam shots, and that's just sort of like your like bread and butter of a Steadicam shot. You're just like, okay, I'm going to walk forward or backwards, and I'm keeping two people in the frame. And then there's the more complicated shots that you're doing, like you're watching Boogie Nights or something like that, where it's like, okay, we're gonna start close up on the microphone on the table, and then we're gonna slowly pull back, and we're gonna reveal the two people at the table, and then one of them's gonna stand up, and he's gonna walk down the hallway and grab something out of the refrigerator, and we punch in on his, and we move in on his hand as he grabs the thing out, and then we pull back out and follow him, as you've got this like 2-minute oneer with all these different movements. And that's a combination of using all these different techniques that you've kind of mastered through the years, of like, okay, how do I hold it for this close up and get that right framing angle, and then get up, and so it's about the subtle movement of the camera to keep the shot framed so it's aesthetically pleasing.
And not only while you're keeping the shot framed and doing your movements, but you're also controlling the focus.
No, I'm not.
No.
Yeah. So the AC, yes. So we gotta have like a wireless focus, and so he's off on a monitor, or I mean, I know ACs that are like old school, really good guys that they don't even use a monitor. They've got the marks on the wheel on the focus to say like 1 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet, and they're looking at the camera, and they're just by eye they can see, okay, the lens, okay, the lens is 2 feet away from the guy's face, or it's 5 feet away, and they're just going like this, and they're pulling focus just by looking at the distance, because that's what they do, and they've been doing it for however many years, and they're that in tune to the thing. But yeah, so it's like, it's the framing, it's okay, I've got to move the camera out of the way, and then you're at this sort of like awareness that you have of, okay, the set that I'm in, I don't want to bump into anything, I don't want to bump the camera into anything, so it's always that kind of like you're having to be aware, and where my feet are, I don't want to trip over something, and then like I said, and then your mind goes back to, okay, I got to have the frame, so you're always sort of like, your mind is sort of jumping around constantly, like, okay, look at my feet, make sure I don't fall over, don't bump into anything, framing the shot, look at my feet, don't bump into anything. It's like, it's kind of, your mind is sort of like constantly bouncing around between these things as you're operating.
So that brings me to my next question, which I'm actually curious about. Have you ever fallen over?
I've had a lot of close calls, And then I did have one instance where I was doing a running shot, following talent, and we are like running outside in this sort of park area, and it was like, so there was like grassy sections, and then there's little sidewalks, and so it was like we were running. It was like grass pavement, grass pavement, grass pavement, and I went from one of the pavements. It was like I was doing fine, and then I go from one of the pavement shots up to the grass, and just didn't lift my feet up quite high enough, but half an inch or something like that, and my foot, instead of going onto the grass, kind of hit the grass and just, and the momentum kind of took me forward. Yeah, so that wasn't the highest point in my career, but it's bound to happen. Anything you do, anybody who's ridden a motorcycle is tipped their motorcycle over, or it's that like split second, like miscalculation by just a half an inch or something like that, that they can do something.
So did you fall, or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
fall?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah.
And how do you fall with this camera in
You,
front of you?
you
You
just
have
you
to
just
roll with it.
you
I'm going down.
yeah, you just, I mean, there's really no like preparing you can do. You just fall, and however it happens, and you're like, instinct kicks in, but it happens so fast. It's like you're on the ground in a heap before you even realize that it's happened, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm on the ground. It's like and then you're down. It's so, yeah, you just kind of, yeah. There's really no like protocol for that sort of thing. It's just
I mean, in your mind, you're like, save the kid. Too late.
yeah, yeah. It's like, save yourself. Yeah, save yourself.
And what is okay? So you've got the camera on
Uh-huh.
you. You're the one who's got to walk with the talent.
Hmm.
You're the one who has to run with the talent. What was your? You ever get winded?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm carrying a lot more weight than usually the talent is, so I can't run as fast or for as long. Like sometimes I'll find myself on set with like, oh, you're gonna follow this 7-year-old girl through the forest. Like, okay, well, we'll see how that goes. I mean, I'm not 22 anymore, but even if I was 22, I've got between 30 and 50, you know 25, 30, 50 pounds of gear strapped to myself, depending on the rig again. So there's a limit to like what I can just physically do and keep up. So it's more than anything, I get hot. Because the vest that I'm wearing, yeah.
You got chest protection.
Yeah, it's like wearing a parka or something like that. Especially like you can get hot out shooting out in the desert. Or earlier this year I was in Hong Kong and China, and it was like super humid. Last year I was on a feature in Cambodia, and that was super humid, and you're just like just sweating, and it's like it's not even like out of breath. It's just or like the physical weight tiring your muscles. Just at some point your body's just like, I'm so hot, and you just keep sweating and you're like, I need to take a break and drink some water and sit down. And I do exercises to kind of keep myself fit and keep myself going. I do a lot of swimming, I do pull-ups, I do that kind of stuff, ride my bike, hike up Runyon, do that kind of stuff. Like I said, I picked up Steadycam as something because I wanted it for my own films that I was directing, and I never. It wasn't like when I first got into this, like, I want to be a Steadicam operator. I always wanted to, like, at first I wanted to be an actor, and then I got into directing, and I loved doing that. And Steadicam was just something that I kind of fell into as a way to work on set, but I love it so much. I love the art of moving the camera around and the freedom that you get with it. But as it's become part of my life, it's like I found myself changing. Like I said, I do exercise and stuff like that to keep myself in better shape for Steadicam. And so I'm so glad that it's been part of my life, because it's given me that motivation where I think maybe if I was just directing and doing post-production, I might not do those things, because I might think, oh, I don't need to be able to run up a flight of stairs, because all I'm doing is directing or whatever I'm doing. And so it's been a motivation for me to kind of like stay in shape and eat well and things like that.
So you do Steadicam, but
Mm-hmm.
you also direct.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the projects that you've directed?
Most recently, my feature film Fifth Passenger just came out. It's a sci-fi thriller. If you like Star Trek, we've got a lot of Star Trek guys in it, guys and gals. Tim Russ, who was in Star Trek Voyager, Marina Sirtis, who was Deanna Troi in Next Generation, Doug Jones, who he's in Star Trek Discovery right now as Saru, but he was also Pan in Pan's Labyrinth, and most recently the Fishman in Shape of Water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he was Abe Sapien in Hellboy. We also have Mano Intiraymi, who's in Star Trek Voyager, and Armin Shimmerman, who was Quark in Deep Space Nine, and Hana Hate, who was Little Molly O'Brien in Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Next Generation. So that's out. We just
Where can they see that at?
it's on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Redbox.
Oh, nice. I'll
Yeah,
check it out tonight.
yeah. It's on all the VOD streaming platforms, like you have Spectrum, Charter, Cable, all those sort of things that have on-demand type videos. It's on all those and everything like that. So so that's my first feature. That we did like crowdfunding and everything like that to put it together, mostly with the help of the Star Trek fan base. And then I've done, before that I did a series of short films and things like that. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I gotta ask the question.
Yeah.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
As a kid, I used to watch them both. I'd watch Star Trek. I'd watch original series when I was a little kid, and watch Star Wars. And I had all the Star Wars toys. I mean, I had a Spock action figure, but I love Star Wars. I loved that universe. Was just the fantasy mythology, the lightsabers and the Force and Yoda and it was such such an entertaining universe and inspiring world to be in. As I've gotten older, and watched Star Trek and watched all of Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise,
Enterprise didn't last very long.
yeah. I really.
They were trying too hard.
Yeah.
They're like, let's have a Vulcan, but let's make her hot as hell.
Yeah.
I was just totally taken out from that. I'm just staring at the screen, going, "What tight outfit are you gonna wear today?"
Right. I mean, it's a good show.
Scott Bakula didn't impress me either.
Oh, okay. I love Scott Bakula from Quantum Leap. I used to love that show as a kid too. But so it's hard to say now, because now that the newer Star Wars films have come out, I feel that the newer Star Wars films have kind of pulled down the overall Star Wars universe. But that's a whole other discussion, right?
Okay, wait a second. I gotta stop you right there. Okay, so people bitch about the newest Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens. And you know what?
Last Jedi. Yeah.
I saw the original Star Wars in a drive-in theater in 1977. I saw all the original movies. I get it. Those movies are great. Well, Return of the Jedi. But,
Uh-oh.
oops. My bad. Dropped my mic. But, and my favorite of the original is obviously Empire Strikes Back. But this is the way that, because if you're going to compare the new stuff to the old stuff, it's not gonna hold up no matter what, because there's new people. It's not George Lucas. It's not.
Yeah.
And he gave it all up. I take it in okay. I watch the first few minutes of the film and I say, okay, what roller coaster ride you're gonna take me on? And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna accept the entire premise. Yes, there are Force books. They're teaching you to learn. Yes. And that's the way I take it nowadays. And I actually liked the last one.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, okay, so this is going to be a little funny comedy thing. All right, I'm down for it. You want to laugh and do little funny stuff? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's tough because you're right. To be honest, of the four newest ones, I I want to say that like Solo has been my favorite of the.
Solo. I did like Solo
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. I
That
felt
was really interesting.
to
Yeah.
me that one, it felt like Star Wars as far as like the tone of the film, like the matchup of the action and the drama and the comedy. I felt more like the original Star Wars, where I feel, especially like The Last Jedi, to me, the comedy in that one fell flat. Like every single time, it seemed super forced and didn't feel in in tune with the original ones. Like Poe Dameron was trying to be funny, where in the original Star Wars, the comedy was like C-3PO and R2-D2, and then there were other moments that were kind of funny, but C-3PO and R2-D2 weren't trying to be funny.
Right.
Like their comedy came out of just the circumstance of them like fighting with each other and being robots that beep boop boop and that kind of stuff. Was like there was comedy in the situation where like The Last Jedi felt like Poe Dameron was on an episode of The Office or something, you know, like
There was some wild stuff in there that I was like when they got to go to the rich casino place. I don't know. I was like,
yeah,
we
yeah,
really need these. We got to save. Like they like free the wild running beasts, and I'm just like, they're just gonna recapture it again. So I don't know.
right, yeah, and they didn't free the child slaves.
Child slaves.
like
They free the children.
Right. Yeah. If they had done if they had done this thing like freed all the child slaves, and then the child slaves would have been an army that came out and helped. I don't know, but I don't know where that would have gone. But
And for those people out there who say there's no such thing as a Force ghost, I want you to watch Empire Strikes Back because
ObiWan.
then ObiWan comes back as a ghost. Yoda
Oh, yeah,
comes
yeah.
back as a ghost. So there are Force ghosts.
Oh yeah,
He just
no.
happened to
Yeah.
project himself to
Right.
across the
I
universe.
like an Empire where after Luke leaves and Obi-Wan talks to Yoda, it's like Obi-Wan sits on the log and he's like. Like okay, he's not like because he's sit on a log, but he's like exasperated. He's like he's a ghost, you know, because he's actually an old man. It's funny, yeah. But no, I love sci-fi. I love.
What do you think of the new Star Trek TV series, and that you got to pay to watch it?
The pay to watch it, I don't mind at all because I don't have cable, so like content doesn't make itself. It's not free. CBS has to spend money to make the show,
Yeah, but
right?
they could have put it over the air. I mean,
Yeah.
They teased us with the.
Sure. Yeah, but honestly, like I would have to pay either way anyways, like because like I said, I don't have cable, so I wouldn't be able
Just
to.
get a broadcast antenna.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like you're paying for it. It's like $6 a month. It's like I feel like I'm paying for the content either way, and I don't mind as a filmmaker myself. I don't mind paying for it. That to me is like like if I was to make a list of gripes about Star Trek Discovery, like that would probably be near at the bottom of the list of gripes I have with it. But
is it the mycelial network or is it the Tartar huge mess?
Like overall, I enjoyed the show. I think an interesting thing about Star Trek is that for the majority of the show, they've been standalone episodes with some two-parters and some broad story arcs. Deep Space Nine did a lot of that, and Deep Space Nine actually changed the landscape of like television by. Oh, okay. Well, but they did long story arcs, and and that was actually one of the reasons why people didn't like the show, was because they would tune in and they would catch an episode and maybe not have all the backstory of like, well, what's going on in this episode because I missed last week's episode or something like that. But now in the days
There
of
were no DVRs back
Right, right, and we didn't have binge watching in Netflix and things like that, and so you're watching a show on syndication, and they're just showing random episodes, and you're like, I really have no context for this show, but if you watch it now like on Netflix, you can binge watch it, and you're like, wow, these are actually really great stories,
Maybe
you
I'll take
know?
another look at it.
Yeah, I think it's worth if you're a fan of Star Trek at all. I think it's worth watching, but definitely Discovery has gone completely into that territory of we're going to be Game of Thrones in space kind of thing is what I there so I can just imagine the executives in the room at CBS
Well,
saying
I saw it. I saw every episode except for the end,
mm,
and
which I think was the worst episode. Like
uh,
the last two episodes were the worst
cause
too.
like as I was getting towards the end, I'm like, this is getting. It was getting like almost too count. Oh, you're my dog. I'm so what the.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just kind of a plot twist. I'm like, oh, you guys just threw that in there to be like, ooh, see how special she is? I'm like, oh yeah, wait, she's special.
Yeah, yeah. I have mixed feelings about it. Like I enjoyed it as a whole.
Yeah,
Uh,
I liked it. I did.
I think in some of the same ways that I didn't like the new Star Wars, I felt like they kind of got away from the feel of the show. Like okay, this is the core sort of like mood and
Because
tone
a lot
of the
of the
show.
original show was like social commentary on
Hmm.
the day,
Yeah, hmm,
because they didn't have a lot of special effects,
yeah,
so
yeah.
you had to have like good storylines to keep people interested.
Yeah, and good character dramas, and
character
I
drama.
yeah, and I felt like the show really focused on like one or two main characters on this, and didn't you don't like most all the other shows. It's about the ship, and the ship is a family, and you get to know. Oh, I know, Crusher's the doctor, and then I get to know Geordi, and I get to know Data, and I get to know all these. I get to know Spock, and I get to know all these characters, and then this one really kind of focused on the main character and just a couple side characters, and I think that was just a creative decision that they made that I think maybe there's no right or wrong answer on that. It's
You know what I was disappointed about?
huh.
I was disappointed that they killed off. God, what was that actor's name?
Oh, Jason Isaacs.
No,
Uh,
no, he was from the '80s. He was in movies with Molly Ringwald. Farmer Ted from.
he was in Discovery.
No, yeah, he's in just he plays the admiral that gets like blown up in the like first or second episode.
Oh,
I'm trying to think of the actor's name.
oh, okay.
Anyway, he was in Breakfast Club. He was the nerd in Breakfast Club.
Oh,
Did you see Breakfast Club?
yeah.
His name is escaping me right
Yeah, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
now. Anyway, I was like,
yeah,
oh, cool. He's got like a.
yeah, yeah,
he's got
yeah.
a-
Uh huh.
Good for him.
Uh huh.
Dead. I'm
Did.
like, oh, man.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's got one of those like three name
Doesn't even
names.
look-
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Anthony
Yeah.
Michael Hall.
Anthony Michael Hall. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Anthony
Okay.
Michael Hall.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's a cool show. I'm excited to see what they do in season 2. Looks like they've kind of taken some of the fan criticisms and sort of like, okay, we're gonna, they brought in new writers. They're kind of giving Klingons hair again, So maybe there'll be less like Klingons talking in Klingon in the show. That would be nice, I think.
That was another thing that I didn't like about it was like these Klingons. We have a history of what Klingons look like. We have a history.
Right, right.
It's progressed, but now they're like these painted faces and silver and black, and I just thought, I'm like, okay, went a little heavy on the makeup. I wasn't too happy with how they looked. I thought they were going to be
Yeah.
more traditional looking.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think it's tough when you're doing something like, okay, we're going to do a prequel, but the prequel we're doing is 50 years later as far as like technology in like cameras and makeup and special effects and all these things, and you're like, even though it's 10 years before Kirk and Spock or whatever, we're literally 50 years later shooting this thing where like the technology is so much different, like
Right.
look,
I mean, it was
yeah,
perfect. I like that.
yeah, yeah,
I like how
like
it
what
shot.
would like Roddenberry's original Star Trek have looked like if he had an unlimited budget and had all the technology and stuff that we had now? Obviously, it wouldn't be just a panel of blinking lights for a computer, right? And it wouldn't be, you know, like all the cheesy things of, you know, the guy in the rubber lizard outfit and like all those kind of things that we think of as like, oh, this is Star Trek, you know, and so that's always tough, I think. And you know, you get
any toys?
no, I mean, just as far as like how do you match that into the universe that exists, and you know, you look at Star Wars for 1977 look so freaking good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, they've gone up and they've cleaned up
Right.
stuff and made, you know, made the
like
ships
some
flying in
redundant
space. Yeah.
stuff they've done that review,
Right,
yeah.
but in general, the sets and the ships and everything that they put together.
I just want to stop
Sure.
you because you put an hour and 20 minutes on your
Right.
computer,
Yeah.
so
Oh, I
gotta
should
go ahead and
probably.
pause the
Okay, I should
recording.
probably double check that. Thanks. Yeah.
Are they survivors?
We need to know what happened to the crew.
If we can't get power from the core, we'll all be dead within 24 hours.
She knows, and so will I. Even if I have to rip it out of her.
You won't be able to keep hiding this.
It's in the walls. We have a fifth passenger.
That man is not coming inside.
Reactor is going into meltdown!